We've taken a look at all the amazing cards released for all the different grades this specific year, and it's time to flip it upside down as we're gonna take a look at the bottom of the barrel and see what absolutely terrible cards that were released in 2019. So today, I present to you guys the absolute worst of the worst, as this time I have the top 10 absolute worst cards of 2019. The rules are the same as I did in my worst cards of 2017 video. We only take a look at high rarity cards released this year, so double R's and higher, because otherwise this list would be filled with only commons and rares, as there were a lot of terrible cards released, and I mean a lot. Also, we don't include reprints in this list, so we exclude the entire Revival Collection set from this video, as there were cards in that set that were also in my 2017 video, so they would get an instant place on this list. So with it out of the way, let's start this shit show. We start this list easy enough to set the mood, as on number 10 we have Wily Revenger Mana. This isn't a terrible card per se, but this card is printed way too late and is too overcosted to sacrifice a grade 1 spot. Shadows has a resource issue as it is, and using a Counterblast and a Soul Blast makes this card not worth to retire. Sure, the power is fine and all, but Shadows doesn't need that within their current builds. Also, the fact it's an 8k and not a 5k means you need to sacrifice a potential main support card, which is the clan's most effective advantage engine. To run non-5k grade 1s, they need to justify their ability like Charon, Claudus or Masquerade. And Mana sadly isn't that. Also, Bushiroad denied us the inside joke, I tap for mana. Pretty disappointing. Violence the Leader was one controversial set, as this set holds a lot of weak cards like Darkbond Trumpeter or the whole Pale Moon support. So there are enough cards from this set that can make this list. So for the number 9 spot we have Apocalypse Bat. This card was supposed to give us 2 free sacrifice targets without wasting cards from hand. This would be fine, was it not for the fact that 1. It costs soul for every card you called, 2. It only works if you ride it on turn 1. Yeah, there were ways to put it into the soul, but it means you need to run other pretty bad cards. And 3, it's a 7k grade 1. The fact you empty your soul for only sacrifice fodder is really bad, as you aren't going to get tempo value out of them, as all cards are understated. Also, the window of effectiveness is so small that 9 out of 10 times you aren't going to get value out of this card. And what makes it even worse is that Shadow Paladin already has plenty of other cards that can do what it can do, but better for more result. So yeah, another card that helps make Violence the Leader a terrible set. While on the topic of Violence the Leader, for the number 8 spot we have the worst card of that set, none other than Gun Salute Dragon, End of Stage. I already gave my 2 cents about this card in my worst design card for Wave 1. That, and being on this list, shows all it needs to say. This card works against what Pale Moon tries to do. The direct support cards, like the Chimera cards, don't work well with him, as you need your Axel circles to really benefit from them. But the moment you want to create those extra circles, you Soul Blast any potential combo card. The card did get some help with the new Silverthorn promo and the double R support grade 3 Miracle Pop Eva, but if Bushiroad really wants to turn this card around, they need to make cards that can recall themselves if they are soul blasted by him. Of course, only with him, otherwise cards like Alice would become broken. This is a brand new card, and we just talked about this card on the channel, and I already expressed my distaste for this card, as on the number 7 spot we have Scanning Operator. I don't care what anybody says, this is a terrible card. Going -1 for a cycle and a soul is the worst value you could ask for. And I still get people saying that the card is playable and usable in a new deck, etc, etc. The fact that you're forced to run this card doesn't mean it's good. It just means that you don't have anything better to run. Of course, there are ways to get the value out of this card, but only if you tailor the entire deck to facilitate this card. I wouldn't be much surprised if this card would be yeeted out of the deck the moment Astral Force is released. From one bad Angel Feather card, we go to another one, as for the number 6 spot, we have Evangel, Seraph, Raphael, Mitra. Never have I ever seen so many people's hopes and dreams seen being crushed and ripped to pieces in a split of a second. So many powerful cards were being revealed left and right for the premium collection, and here Angel Feather players thought they would actually get a usable stride. Well, the meta results for the past month speaks for themselves. The card does absolutely nothing for Angels than stall, like if they needed more of that. Yeah, sure, in combination with Metatron you could go from 5 damage all the way back to 2, but in terms of pressure, this did absolutely fuck all. Bushiroad really sent us a message that Angel Feathers is a Gize deck and probably always be. Hopefully with Premium Collection 2 announced, we'll see an actual Angel Feather stride. Now we get to the actual infuriating cards of 2019, as these cards just don't make sense at all. And for this spot, we have Dimension Police, Glory Maker. This card literally makes no sense. Dimension Police is all about hitting with high insane powered attacks. They are the embodiment of PG or GG, or in the case of Guard Break, double PG or GG. Look at Dayusha, Dyliner and Grey Dayusha, big beat sticks with potential crits. So their biggest problems are PGs. So what's the point of having a guard restrict that forces your opponent to guard with only the great, which those PGs resides in? Everybody was already planning to guard with either a draw PG or a bunch of triggers, but the fact you need to waste a counterblast is ridiculous, as it's the most important resource of the clan. And for anybody that thinks, well, the value lies in stopping protect markers, then I have a question for you. Where are those protect decks? Before we go over number 4, let me paint a picture for you. We have a brand new archetype that revolves around drive checking heal triggers to get free restands out of your units, meaning you always attack last with your Vanguard. So when there was still a double R grade free spot left to be revealed, means we had a potential grade free boss unit that would support this archetype or playstyle, right? Wrong! We got this piece of garbage. Hydro Hurricane Dragon is the most useless grade free Aquaforce could get. The unplays retire skill is out of place for the clan, as they couldn't care less about their opponent's field. But the worst offender is his Vanguard ability, where he needs to attack first to get a 10k buff. This completely contradicts the Blue Wing mechanic, so you could play him as a backup target for your other decks. Well, wrong, because this card is in the same clan as cards like Algos and Tidal Assault, which makes this the most useless card that can't even do something useful for the clan. Having a counterblast draw ability isn't that bad. Some clans would wish for that value, but in a clan that can superior call specific cards for that cost, will have less reason to have a simple counterblast draw ability. Now imagine some awkward condition on top of that, where your opponent needs to do something specific in order to activate its effect. And then we have a pretty useless card on our hands. Say hello to Soul Guiding Elf. I mean, what were they thinking while making this card? It doesn't help royals at all. We already have grade 1s that can draw, but also give us power when we do so. Does Marin and Ellen ring a bell? But what's more ridiculous is that we let our opponent decide if we get to draw or not. A card that allows your opponent to decide what their value is by default a bad card, unless the outcome is always good, or at least on a higher value than normal cards. In this case, it isn't. It has the same value as other cards that allows us to draw. If this cost was a Soul Blast, or you get 2 draws, then we were talking about a usable card. But God forbid that we can get some actual cards that bring decision making to a match. Last time I ended the list with my most personal hated card of the year, as it was grinding my gears how it robbed Gear Chronicles potential to a awesome GB8 card. So to not fall in repetition, this time my personal most hated card is this time on number 2. And man, I hate this card just like Beyond Order was beyond worthless. conquering Supreme Dragon Conquest Fulgurate is far from great. Holy crap, this is a hot ball of garbage, which the clan actually can't use at all. Premium Narukami's needed a first right as they have plenty of finishers in the likes of VMAX, Voltage and Closer Dragon. So what did we get? Another finisher. Narukami has a hand size issue, so what did we definitely need? Another ability that cost a discard for no apparent reason. And you know what's even worse? We already got a card that is better than this card in every single aspect, and that is V-Buster. V-Buster can bind 2 cards on first right where Fulgurate can only do 1. And even if you G-guard it first, then they both do 2. Fulgurate can get an extra drive with 7 bind and only the extra crit with 10. V-Buster get them both at 7 bind. And that's so much easier to attain, as hell you ain't going to get that far on first right anyways. So the GB Freak restriction isn't even something that makes V-Buster worse than Fulgurate. And if you think the power is going to play a role in the card's value, then the only thing I can say is, the moment the power actually is going to make a difference is the moment this card is useless again, as we have Voltage. As a first stride, V-Buster is miles ahead, and as a second stride, Voltage is miles ahead. This card fulfills actually no purpose at all. Oh yeah, another thing, this card retires Bind, not just Bind like V-Buster does, so it doesn't even work with the new support. So yeah, F this card. Before we go into the number 1 worst card of 2019, let's take a look at some dishonorable mentions so I can hopefully lower my blood pressure before I go crazy. First off, we have Quaking Heavenly Dragon, Asteroids Dragon. This card isn't terrible or bad per se, but this is a King of Knights Alfred power level card yet again in a VR, but then in a more power crept environment. This makes the card really weak. Yes, this card is a necessary tool for the deck, but because of its shortcoming, it will be removed from the deck as soon as they get a new VR, if that is also a Astral Poet with the Astral Plane ability. The second dishonorable mention is Cosmo Healer Ergodiel. Just like Asteroids Dragon, this card is the first VR for a complete new playstyle and is pretty underwhelming, as they don't give you enough value for allowing your opponent to get free counter charges for doing absolutely nothing. However, I do feel that Angels might become a powerful deck with the upcoming support, as we could look at a second gold paladin situation, as they were pretty mediocre with their first set and suddenly became insane. So that's why Ergodiel only gets a dishonorable mention. Another unit is Magician of Quantum Mechanics. This card, or more precisely this support wave for Pale Moon, was just weird. Most of the cards just didn't make sense or had so low return value. This is a prime example of that. On the surface, this might look useful, sacking 2 units to get 2 soul and a draw is a lot of value. But once you take the card apart, then you realize there isn't much to gain. You need to get this thing out of the soul, so you must already commit resources to even activate this ability. You could say it works with Golden Beast Tamer, as you can open up circles to prevent units to call over each other for multi-attacks. Well, the issue there is a good Pale Moon player can prevent this from happening, as they can combo with cards like Emerald Beast Tamer and Comicality Chimera to clear the field. But in the case you want to do that, you are sacking your attackers for random cards in Soul. Also, you are sacrificing an attack to do so, as this thing on an XL2 won't hit. So for getting more attacks without minusing, you're actually sacrificing attacks. And what it also doesn't help is that it's competing for a spot for Pale Moon's most important units, namely their Great Ones. The last mention is another card from Violet as the leader, as we have Demonic Hair Stealth Rogue Grenjin. This card could have been so much more in a clan without counter charge, and at the same time a main skill that wasted so much counterblast, Zambaku namely. This card was just useless, and even now with Hyuga, this card just doesn't get its break. To be honest, even if this card costed a single counterblast, this wouldn't be broken, as unlike other restanders or multi-attackers, this multi-attack isn't guaranteed. For one, you are forced to waste 4 slots in your build, and if you draw too many or damage them early on, you just lost the effectiveness of a card. If they thought this would be too much power, They could have given the hard once per turn clause. Oh well, it looks like Murukuma won't get this card as Numatama apparently got a similar card, but it actually works for the clan, which is odd as seen as one is an Axel deck and the other is a Protect deck. With Fulgurate, we at least knew from the start what kind of useless crap it would be. But this one takes everything you could think of and brought it to a whole nother level. As for this year, the worst card of 2019 is Arc-Saver Dragon. Not only does this card not help the archetype it's supposed to support, and I mean at all, its only usable application was pulled from underneath it when Bushi updated their rulings where face down damage cards doesn't have any information printed on them. Meaning, you couldn't heal a face down damage card, making this skill effectively limited to once again, and the card outright unplayable. Even with the terrible reruling, if this card was treated as a blaster unit while in the Vanguard circle, then there was no actual problem with this card as it worked with the engine. But the fact it's not makes it absolutely no sensical. This card was meant to be a setup or recovery tool for Messianic, but in the process turned out to be the complete opposite, as during the turn you write this thing, you effectively do shit all. You swing with low numbers and that's it, as none of your abilities are active, as you always miss a 6 blaster unit. Also because it's a grade 4, it can result in a situation where you lack a grade 3 target and you can't write this thing as you didn't call enough blaster units to make it a grade 3. But the opposite is also true, where you did call enough but you need to G-assist, and if this is the only card in your top 5, you can't even get it, as it's a grade 4 while G-assisting. So yeah, terrible card. It sucks, and probably the main reason the deck is nothing more than a meme. If only we got an actual blaster grade 3 support card. And there you have it, my picks for the absolute worst cards released this year. Of course, this list is completely subjective and you might have different picks or different cards that should have been on the list. So I'm curious if all your opinions are in that fact. So let me know in the comments down below what you think are the absolute worst of the worst and should be mentioned to say this card sucks. But the funny thing to note about this particular list, or at least my personal picks, is that a lot of cards stem from either the Violet the Leader or from the Infinite Deity Cradle set. And that's pretty obvious, as both those sets have a very different approach of cards. As with the Violet the Leader set, we saw a different kind of focus on playstyle. We had God's Blaster Dragon, which was a controversial card. Also Gunsloot Dragon and the whole Pale Moon support that was super wacky and in some card pretty underwhelming or underperforming. A lot of people were giving Pale Moon a lot of hate after that set, saying it was a non-existent clan, although the Golden Beast Tamer support was pretty solid on their own fairness. But then again, we saw this same thing happening with the Infinity Cradle set, where we went to a new series, and of course this also has to do with the amazing power creep that went before it with the Phantasmal Steed. So having a set that slows a little bit down after such an incredible high jump in power creep will seem very weak, and that's what we've seen with Genesis and Angel Feather to a much extent. So it's quite obvious that a lot of cards, or at least a lot of people, will think most of those cards of those sets are pretty weak in comparison to the rest of the year. But that's basically to clarify, or at least give an argument to why those cards are mentioned in this video a bit more times than cards from different sets. But that's basically sums up everything for this video. So just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think are the absolute worst of the worst cards. And join me tomorrow when we are going to take a look at the absolute best of the best. As although we already analyzed the best cards in every single grade for grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, we haven't actually made an absolute top 10 for this year. So we're going to do that tomorrow and expect some cards that we even haven't talked about, because premium collection is also a thing. But with that said, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video and everything happening on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But as always guys, I'm Mr. Timeleap, and I see you guys in the next one.